Welcome back to another episode of Flip the Script, SCRIP without the T, and I'm here with Cameron and Chris. Weight loss, skinny Chris back here. And we were going to have Abby back on today, Cameron, but her baby girl got a tummy bug, so she wanted to come on and talk a little bit more about that Fortel B12 and the magic hair growth she's been experiencing with it. But anyway, we'll say that for another day. Let's talk about this one, dude. Dave Johnson sent me this text. Dave was on last week, I believe it was, right? About this pharmaceuticals in this country. We're the only country other than New Zealand who advertises these things on television. And on Fox yesterday, I saw where they had one of these senators. He's a physician, and I believe he's a senator or a congressman. And he was talking about how, Maha and Kennedy, they're trying to get this direct-to-consumer advertising out of the American public's television, right? Again, because like I talk about in my first book, Light Your Fire, we got the average 40-year-old on 4 meds, average 60-year-old on 6. And it's direct consumer. We're the only one does it. Europe doesn't allow this stuff, right? And so David sent this to me on a text about apparently during the Academy Awards last week, some actress got up and she was really taunting this common heart drug doubles as off-label anxiety aid. How about this? Driving surge in prescriptions. So basically, this is what's known as a beta blocker. Goes on to say, common heart drug doubles as off-label anxiety aid, driving the surge in the prescriptions. And it talks about this medication, beta blocker, quickly becoming a hot new drug to combat anxiety. Really? I mean, when you put this stuff out there, and then, of course, you get anytime they get a chance to dump it into Hollywood comes out, it's like the gold standard suddenly. I don't know where this particular actress got her expertise in pharmaceuticals, but, hey, they don't need to. Just come out there, shout it out, and the drug company will take it over from there, right? And so will social media. Beta blockers, though. Side effect? Well, libido under the carpet for one, right? And not to mention, a lot of times when you get on these medications, you just can't come off of them cold turkey as well, because you're actually putting this heart into a synthetic rhythm and function. And you know what's interesting about this too? My uncle, who was a cardiac surgeon, he was in the Air Force where he first started. We were talking 20 years ago about blood pressure meds, and he mentioned these beta blockers to me. And I asked him, I said, well, because my uncle had a issue with blood pressure, and I asked him, I said, well, Unc, are you taking that beta blocker? And he said to me straight up, hell no. He's like, and then he was the one that told me about the fact that it knocks the libido under the carpet. But he does prescribe it because patients come in. But he prefers to use an ACE inhibitor, something gentler, something that's not so addicting.
What's that other one? ACE inhibitors?
ACE inhibitors, it's just there's a variety of different types of blood pressure meds. Some are stronger than others, of course, right?
Oh, so beta blockers are blood pressure meds.
Yes,
okay.
Beta blockers.
I thought they were for cardiac arrhythmias.
Well, no, but here again,
it kind of does one and the same, sort of. So
exactly.
It can double up.
So getting to that point, because when you talk about the arrhythmias, for example, we talked about the B vitamin deficiency creating the arrhythmias, and magnesium as well, and the polyunsaturated fatty acid like the fish oil. So getting back to my uncle, I asked him this. I said, Jerry, I said, what do you use for the blood pressure? And he says, I take fish oils. This is 20 years ago, so this is pretty good stuff. Fish oils and magnesium, he said, is his go-to. Does he still prescribe the medications? Yes, he does, because some patients aren't good at, they look at the supplement like, well, that can't work. It's over the counter, right? And that's another thing you find, too. The polyunsaturated fatty acids over in Europe, this is like if you have a cardiac issue, it's almost, what I don't want to say the words, but it's unethical for them not to prescribe or recommend a fish oil or a polyunsaturated
Doctors here
fatty
can
acid.
still prescribe them. They just never do.
Well,
And your
they don't.
insurance will pay for it. Like say a good fish oil is expensive. Well,
No, it's
they'll
not.
they'll yeah.
Right.
Well, they'll it's that like they're like I'm having to buy it versus my insurance will cover the medication. They'll cover the fish oil too. It's just that you have to get your doctor to prescribe it.
Right.
They'll pay for a gym
Yes.
membership now. I think back in
Yeah.
like 2020 or something or 2022 something passed to where you can get your doctor to prescribe a gym membership and they'll reimburse you or pay for it.
Well, I know for the seniors now they have the silver sneakers, but getting back, you're exactly right. 5 or 10 years ago, they came out with a pharmaceutical form of a fish oil. Exactly, brother. And so therefore you saw the commercials on television for it. I haven't seen that in the last 5 years or so. But they had a commercial for the fish oil, which I guess because it was on television and as a commercial, and you could get it from a prescription from your doctor. So, of course, if you didn't have the prescription, it was probably crazy expensive, which polyunsaturated fish oils are not, you know. Of course, you want a good quality brand one. But because of that, now they had a script, so now you were going to find more doctors to write it. Because one of the questions was, well, if these do work so well, why doesn't the average physician in America write this? And one of the supposed reasons was that they were kind of above that. You didn't need a script for that, right? So you come to me, I've got to give you something that's going to be, I guess, more powerful than the natural protocol.
Right.
Which, you know, gets me back to, since we're talking about that, the difference between the drugs and the supplements. Because, you know, in my practice, I'm using supplements. Drugs, and of course the other thing about the FDA, which I was talking with a friend of mine, an attorney down in Florida the other day, and we were talking about this, and he's retired now, but FDA, Food and Drug Administration, under the same hat? How did that happen?
Yeah, very.
Right?
I wondered that a long time ago. It's kind of like the same thing with the what's the people that deal with guns and alcohol. They deal with. I'm like, that doesn't really make much sense. But
What is that? The alcohol, tobacco,
ATF.
Yeah, ATF.
Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Is that what it stands for?
Yeah.
I always thought that was
Who put
weird.
those together, right?
Yeah.
And who put the FDA? Well, here's the interesting story. This book again, I'm going back to it again, Metabolical by Robert Lustig. This guy, he's got everything in this book. It's interesting. But here's what actually had happened. Initially, the FDA had hired a nutrition-based guy who was running this thing, right? And he lasted a couple of years. And then apparently the Rockefellers came along going, this is not going to work for us. They got rid of him within the first 3 or 4 years. And then they put in one of their doctors. And that was the end of the Nutritional-Based Food and Drug Administration.
And when was
Interesting.
that?
I'm going to say that's probably 60 years ago now. I mean, it was when it first came out was, early on, I would think.
Because the Rockefellers, I don't know what year he died, but did his kids take over and all that?
I don't.
Because then it kind of turns into because I've always looked into that.
It's a corporation now. So,
Yeah, right.
I mean, they started off with Rockefeller University that became New York University.
Mm-hmm.
So how far back does that go? And remember, he also had this relationship with the Kellogg's guy. And that's why they started out with him. They got together and they said, hey, you know what? Let's do this carb breakfast so we can sell your cornflakes.
Yeah.
And that's where they got to and also the cereal was easy for the parents. This was in their, I guess, 50s and 60s when they really started pushing Kellogg's. And that was it, man. And the next thing you know, here came the food pyramid, all carbohydrates. It all comes together. And what's really good is he breaks it down in this book. This is really an interesting book. One of my best reads. This one, and another one that's real popular out now is this Casey Means, his sister, and the Good Energy book. This is a real popular one as well. And again, she's a MD, but her practice now focuses mainly on supplementation. But getting back to the difference between the two, a drug is basically designed to reduce a symptom. That's what it does. And we were talking about how the chronic, we went through chronic disease in this country now. Went 1960, zero money spent on it. and then we just
1 trillion.
Yes, and we did the 1 trillion. I think it's coming out here soon. $1 trillion last year spent in that. We went from 0 to 1 trillion in 60 years. This is kind of where we are, and the difference with that with a supplement, like when we're using a supplement, we're basically giving the body that which it's deficient in. So, if I have a case like a pathology, a bacterial issue or whatever, we're going to take an antibiotic is what that's the medical approach to it. Take the antibiotic, which means anti-life. You take this supplement, and basically it just kills off everything. It's kind of like the atom bomb going off in our gut. So it's going to clean up. It's going to kill off the bad bacteria, but it's also going to kill off all that good bacteria. Now this is our immune system. This is kind of like our military that fights off any other infection that comes in. Well, the half-life of that antibiotic is about 2 weeks. After that, we've got nothing to protect the next pathogen coming in, which is why we say if you have to take that antibiotic, you got to follow it up with a probiotic, or better yet, even a prebiotic like inulin, to build back up my military, back in my immune defense system. Otherwise, the next little thing that blows through the door when somebody opens it up, a little bacteria or virus, boom, we're back down again because of lack of immune system. So a supplement will help that thing by which we're deficient in. We talked about the same thing when we were talking about the cardiac health. When I'm using something like a B vitamin or magnesium or something to help with the rhythm of the heart, I'm not treating that particular condition, okay? That's what a drug does. A supplement is just giving the body back that nutrient.
Just filling in the gaps.
That's right.
Right.
Let it function the way it's supposed to. Without that deficiency, we should not have that problem in this body that was created, in a sense, healthy to begin with.
Systematic manner. Right.
Yes. Right. So, and when you're looking at again, like we talked about with the metabolic health, there's no drug for metabolic health, okay? That's metabolic metabolism. Basically, it's our environment and it's our diets. So we have created this ourselves. Fix the environment, fix that nutrient by which you're deficient in, and then we shouldn't have the problem, and therefore we wouldn't have a symptom by which we're trying to regulate and medicate. Follow me? So that's the beauty about the supplementation. That's why we look at this particular condition and say, yes, you have that symptom, but I'm not treating that particular symptom when I'm treating my patients with a supplement. All right, I'm giving them what I believe to be that nutritional deficiency. Put that back in the system, let it function properly. So that's the difference between, the drug and the supplementation. Another good example is the anti-inflammatories in our country, right? Now, this one's really big with athletes.
Yeah, and because that inflammation is for a reason. And my buddy that's a chiropractor, we were talking about that one time because talking about putting heat versus cold on like something that's injured, this or that. And then I started asking about when something's swollen up or this or that, and he's like, that swelling is like, actually, people freak out about it, but that's like the healing process.
Part of the process.
It's just and then you go and put cold on it or take this medicine to stop the inflammation, and then it kind of stops your healing.
It does.
Kind of let it run its course, let it heal. It's pushing in blood. It's doing all these things, and so ever since I found that out some years ago, I'm just like, okay, I don't take medicine. I don't take ibuprofen or Tylenol.
If you can help it, because again, exactly, when you, like the injury, the strain sprain, say you get a high ankle strain sprain, for example. Okay, if you come in and you do something like ibuprofen or some other type of COX-2 inhibitor, all right, you're going to stop that pain pathway. So yes, you're going to feel better fairly quickly. But like you were just talking about there, the healing process of that inflammation process is about a 28-day protocol, right? Time period. So, but what these COX-2 inhibitors will stop is that DNA replication that's necessary for the healing process. So it shuts it down. So therefore it doesn't get to go through that. So let's just say, for example, you're playing in a football game. And I'll give you an example. There was a Georgia tight end a couple of years ago, wound up with a high ankle sprain during the playoffs. You can bet he was back in the next game. Now, with that high ankle sprain, we know that he didn't have the 28 days by which to heal that, correct? Okay, so chances are pretty good. Some kind of COX-2 inhibitor came in, allowed him to get through that. But here's the
stronger.
thing. Or something stronger.
Probably something
Here's
stronger.
the thing. What they found out with that is that when you stop that DNA replication, it increases the likelihood of about a 70% increase or decrease in the strength of that connective tissue. So what's the chances of you having a worse injury within that window? A lot.
It's like when you roll your ankle once and then you start rolling it a bunch.
Yes,
unless you take the proper time off, do your little rehab stuff. Like that was happening to me. And then I started doing, I went to go see my PT and they said, you need to start doing, I don't do calf raises because I have huge calves just genetically. And so
I hate you for it.
And so anyway, I
mine are non-existent. Thank you very much.
And then
you got mine.
She was like, you need to work on your soleus. You need to, but you have to have a bent knee. So start doing these single, and I started doing it and like my legs like shaking and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I started doing that, and now my ankles are fine. You know what I mean?
Because the synergistic stabilizers, right?
But it used to just roll all the time, and it rolled once, and it would roll again, and then roll.
Same thing. This is one of those. Yeah, go ahead.
But it's like when someone pulls their hamstring. It's like you tend to see them pull it again.
Yeah. Well, good. We'll go to the hamstring in just a minute because that was my issue. But let's get back to that sprained ankle. That ligament on the outside is called the deltoid ligament, right? So once you strain that and you roll that, you lose its tone, right? So it increases elasticity. So the chances of you doing it again are high. And that's what happens with a lot of basketball players. And that's why they came in with the high top after a while, because so many of them were rolling the outward roll of the pronation, if you will, into the sprain on the outside of the ankle. But what's really interesting is, in my clinical experiences, the more that a patient has sprain that outside portion of the ankle, they'll develop a fat pad on the outside of that part of that healing process.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the larger the fat pad will give me a pretty good idea how many times they rolled that, like you were talking about.
Why is that?
Well, I guess because of the tissue damage in there and the buildup of the scar tissue over time, right?
Yeah,
because
that makes sense.
You get the tear and you're going to get the fibrosing in there. And again, if we don't go through that full healing process, or we wind up with a COX-2 inhibitor to erase the pain,
like
we didn't go through
Graston scraping and stuff.
Great, anything. That's a great example.
Up.
That increases the
blood flow, or
also to the fibroblasts. The more fibroblasts you can get in the area, the better healing. But the fibroblast does the same thing. That's why you don't do that every day, because when you bring that inflammation there, like when you get a cut in the arm, right, the red on either side of that cut, those are fibroblasts. They're healing. So when you do that cross friction, like you were talking about, the Grostic type stuff, you're bringing fibroblasts in the air. And in my opinion, whatever protocol you're using for that healing of that strain sprain injury that brings the greatest amount of fibroblasts in the area, that is my preferred treatment for that particular type of injury. That's why massage is good, cross friction, because as we bring the fibroblasts in, they go through that healing process. Now, that creates a little bit of inflammation, because a little bit of inflammation heals. If we did it every day, we'd continually have that inflammation in there, and it wouldn't have the chance to heal. Follow me? And that's what can happen with the COX-2 inhibitor. You block that pain inflammation, right? But you're not letting that inflammation process go through its full cycle, and you don't get that DNA replication, so you don't heal the tissue, let it become strong again. And the interesting thing about that is, that's us as Americans. So that's why the Americans use more anti-inflammatories than the world combined. Pretty interesting.
Well, Braxton was telling me, because this goes back to how corn is super inflammatory and stuff. Braxton was saying that, this was yesterday, he said that because they put corn out for deer and stuff, and they've found deer with like bellies full of corn, and they just died just from the corn.
Really? Interesting.
He said he was seeing stories about that. I was like, I don't know how that's really possible, but it's crazy, you know what I mean?
Well, and it's sort of kind of sad too, because one of the things, because I love my deer meat, right? But one of the things what you love about that is that you're getting these omega-3s from these plant-based foods they're eating.
That's why you don't really want to necessarily you want to, if you can, go hunt somewhere where they're just at, rather than like bringing them in. A lot of times when they bring them in, they're giving them all this sweet treats to attract them, and it's like full of corn, baiting them with sweet corn and stuff.
And that goes right down to the exact same thing that we do with cows, because we talked about that. If you ate a grass-fed cow, you'd have an omega-3 fatty acid instead of that inflammatory omega-6 that you're getting from the corn, right?
I would still think you're getting good deer meat even if they're baiting them in, though, right?
Well, you're going to get better than, you're going to get better than if you had a deer that was raised on nothing but corn, right? Well,
yeah.
And, good point there, because, the deer, they're going to prefer that acorn and the other natural foods if they can get it, because they know as well that it's better for them. But if you want to fatten up that deer, like, these people who hunt over these feeders, they got some fat deer, but they got some inflamed deer. So like you said, yes, is that meat better than maybe that completely corn-fed cow? Good point. Now, though, when we consume these cows that are corn-fed, then we've got an inflammatory meat, and that fructose that's in that corn we're consuming, and then we get the inflammatory omega-6 from the cow. And like I said, let a cow out of a barn, pal. They're not going over in the cornfield, right? No, they're going to go over and eat what they were designed to eat by their creator. That's right.
Dude, I was trying to find a picture, but I can't, and I guess I didn't save it, but it was a picture of, they basically took a pig and like chopped it in half, okay, drained out all the intestines and stuff to where you could only see the fat and the meat, or no, it was like only the muscle, right, the meat, and it was like a pig that was raised like
wild
or like free range or whatever, versus like mass produced in a at a pork farm or whatever, and it was like double the amount of meat on the one that was free range and under half as much fat. It was like, and they were talking about, like, people talk about how pork is bad. It's like modern in bulk pork farms bad, but if it is like just a pig that's out, it's living really
off
not
of the ground for the most part,
right,
not lifting off of the slop that we're feeding them, right?
And,
Hey, excuse me. Think what I would look like if I was running around these hills.
You are running. You're walking around these hills, Chris. Look at you now. By the way, let's see. We were at 20 pounds last week, right? We holding steady. Well, if you took those boots off, you might be 25 pounds off. I'm just saying. Not in his sneakers today, so obviously. Did you already get your walk in, bro? You already get in? All right. Well, we got that to do. Better hurry up, man. We're back in the 90s again. It's getting ridiculous around here for what are we, almost October now?
Yeah.
So
no one wanted to play soccer today, so we had to cancel pickup.
Yeah.
Hey, we got some rain yesterday. Did it rain at the house?
Got a good storm.
Okay, good. I'm hoping it
right during my nap. It was beautiful. How are we doing now?
What? Yeah.
Are we kicking it? Huh?
Yeah, I don't know how long we've been going.
2022.
Well, let's jump on methylation then for a little bit, because I had this little thing I want to talk about, because everybody's into, I get these patients that come in and I'll talk to them about a supplementation. Well, my doctor said that I'm deficient in the gene for methylation, so therefore I have to take something that's a methylated form of B12. I'm like, well, oh my God, whatever new now, right? So, and the methylation, again, is, it's a great process. And I talk about, if we eat the foods with the methyl groups in them, then there's no need to supplement for those synthetic vitamins that require methylation for the absorption, right? So, the methyl group is, again, the beautiful thing about it, and when we're talking methyl groups, we're talking the cruciferous vegetables primarily, right? The kale, the Brussels sprouts, broccoli, one of the best one. Another good one that we're hearing a lot about now is the beets and the super red foods, right? With the nitric oxide increase for the cardiovascular health. You're seeing the commercials on television, and overall stamina, because it helps with vasodilation. So that's another good form of a methyl donor.
Didn't you say, are they coming out with a product for that? Or?
Yes, Standard Process is coming up with one, but we won't jump into that one just yet, because
whenever that's out, I want that.
Well, very good stuff. And it's due out soon with another great product as well, called mountain spinach, which is red mountain spinach, which is
Never even heard of that.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty awesome stuff. But anyway, we'll get to that one later. But I want to touch this on these methyl groups. For example, like, they also have a product out now called Whole Food Folate, Standard Process does. So with the Whole Food Folate, you don't need the process, you don't need that synthetic process of the methylation. because it's already methylated in its natural form. And I think that what I look at today with the people who are talking about the deficiency, first of all, remember methyl groups also bind next to that cysteine amino acid in the DNA helix to keep that gene from expressing itself. So even if you do have I have that gene that doesn't allow me to naturally process, the B12. Consume your methyl foods and you won't have that issue. But here's the thing. We talk about how over the last 50 years or so, the green leafies are becoming out of our diet. Not to mention that a lot of the soil, unless it's organic, won't have those nutrients in it as well. So can you understand why in my opinion, we're starting to see so many people that have this issue with the natural methylation within the body? Mm-hmm. If you get out there and eat yourself some more kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, what's that one? The Brussels sprout. Cauliflower is another good one, though. If we consume these, then we don't have to worry about whether or not we're assimilating that B12, that folate, or what other methyl supplementation that we're looking to absorb. Because if it's organic, we don't need something to break it down. It's already going to have that enzyme in it naturally, which is the beautiful thing. So get back to your organic base. Again, I push this. Supplementation. That's why it makes a difference. You can't get these store-bought, isolated, man-made supplements and expect them to work. And now I understand why your physician says, oh, you're going to have to take this particular form that has been methylated for you. Not if you're going organic, you don't, right? Mm-hmm. So with these people who are experiencing this, I can see where it's commonplace. Because again, it's a metabolic issue associated with the fact that we're eating our way into these problems. So go organic where you can. And then you can just cut out the issue with the genetic predisposition. Because like we said before, it's not the genetics, it's the epigenetics. It's what occurs. The epigenetics actually have to turn on the gene. And the gene doesn't have to be expressed just because you have it if it's not turned on. And what turns that on? Again, the environment, our lifestyle, and our diet. So another easy way around that. I wanted to touch on that because I've been getting a lot of that in my clinic lately over the last year or so. I guess we're getting a lot more of these people who are getting tested for this particular genetic mutation.
It's like the new fad out. I think Gary Brecka popularized it and stuff. His company was doing testing.
Good point.
You get $500 and get tested and all that. So, and he was on Joe Rogan and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, again, another one of those fads. Stick to the basics, people. Stay organic when possible. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to go.
He also talks about hydrogen water, infused water with hydrogen. And I'm like,
we'll save that one for another day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, whatever.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, hey, man, that was pretty good. So let's wrap this one up with stay consciously aware of your awareness of consciousness, people, please. And as usual, have yourself a great day. So
you ain't missing one.
There you go, brother. Until next time, we'll see you. Bye.